Hello, 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 hello. It's good to see you. Say hello.
Welcome to the Husky Hockey Podcast, your number one resource to remind you that it is the most wonderful time of the world. You know, you can bring out the Andy Williams all you want, but sweeping North Dakota, always the most wonderful time of the year. I'm Weldie, sitting with Andrew. We're going to talk all things college hockey, all things Husky hockey. And what better way to start out the podcast than just talking about the absolute shellacking that St. Cloud put on North Dakota? This is going to be a fun show. Like, I am hyped. This is going to be exciting because, like, my favorite thing in the world is trashing North Dakota. And this is going to be probably straight 40 minutes of just all over this team.
Do we want to just start with like a minute's worth of wooing? Woo! Woo!
Commutatively.
You don't join. You're not joining me. I don't know. I'm ready to woo here for like a minute solid. But
everybody can hit the 15-second back button there if you want to get up to a minute and just have Andrew on repeat. Actually, Andrew, you know what? That clip I'll put to my phone. That'll be my text message every time that you text me. It'll be that woo.
Hit up our new buddy, the PA guy. I mean, he gets paid he doesn't get paid to woo, but he gets paid, I guess, to set up everyone. Yeah, so maybe it's perfect. Huh? Woo! There you go. All right, there's one more. All right.
Love it. Yeah, which, I mean, there was a clip of, I don't know if you saw Jason during the show or during I think it was on Saturday's game when they were reviewing the fourth goal. And he was in the penalty box and they were reviewing like he was shaking. Like he was I don't know if he was amped up or like he was shaking. Maybe it was a little bit of an exhale of relief or of like, yep, that's going to be a good goal. I don't know what he overheard, but I don't know. Like just, I had a gif of it and I sent it over to Go Huskies Woo. And I think he made some kind of comment, but it was him like, I don't know. He was getting into it. And you could tell, I wasn't at the game, unfortunately, but you could tell like through the atmosphere. I thought that he was really feeding into the audience, especially that Saturday game when, we were on that comeback train. So overall thoughts, I'm just going to ask it right off the bat here. I know we're a Huskies pod talking about North Dakota. Is there any hope for this North Dakota team?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of one of my initial reactions once the game was sealed, once the Saturday game, the sweep was clinched for the Huskies. My kind of initial reaction, this North Dakota team isn't that good, so should I be that excited? Then I took a second, and I said, hell yeah, because anytime you sweep North Dakota, I'm going to be jazzed. I don't care if they're the worst team in college hockey. Sweeping them, and first time in 21 years sweeping them at home, that really goes beyond when the time that I started becoming a Husky fan. So this is a first for in my fandom of enjoying a home sweep of these guys. So yeah, I don't think, getting back to your question, they've got some skilled guys. They got some dangly guys, Gaber and James and Blake, even, like Clevin did a little dipsy doodle on the Saturday game that kind of, so they got some of those kind of players. They don't play really well as a team, I don't think. They're kind of more individual players rather than team players. But more importantly, I mean, so I think they can score some goals, and their power play is decent enough, I think, to produce, some margins of victory for them going forward. But this defense is terrible, and this goaltending unit is god awful.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
It's kind of surprising that North Dakota is like having this much trouble in the goaltending position. And that's even dipping into the transfer portal to find someone.
Yeah. And Barry, I don't know if Barry's role prior to him being the head coach was as a defensive coach, because I think he was a defenseman as a player. So when he did get the job, I kind of figured that would have been his MO. If that is his sort of trademark style, being a defensive-minded coach, you wouldn't know it based on this last weekend. And so, yeah, this North Dakota team, I don't know, like we said about the 7th place where they're still stuck now, obviously from getting swept, not being able to move up any. I still think that's a reach, because I think teams like CC and aren't very good either, and so I'm not sure if I can go out and say that they're gonna stay at that place, but at this point, I'd be surprised if they're a tournament team. Watching them this weekend, it was a little stunning just how loose they played on the back end, and how much and how leaky that defensive and the goaltender. I mean, Helston was terrible on Friday. I was surprised they waited as long as they did to pull him, because I thought after the third goal, when he played the puck and then that turned into disaster, that I thought would have been a prime time to pull him. Looking back, though, you weren't really doing much better with DeRitter, so maybe it didn't make that much of a difference. Although I did think that Helston was noticeably worse. Surprised that he got the Friday start, just based on the numbers going into the year, or going into the series, and then just the performance, giving up shots to Spellacy, skating into the blue line.
Spellacy, who was 1-on-3.
Yeah.
Like, that's not somebody who you should let snipe you.
And just on a glove side shot, too. And like I said, playing the puck became a nightmare. Rebounds, juicy rebounds all night from DeRitter when he took the crease as well. Same kind of story. Huskies look very good. Let's not bury the lead here and just dog on North Dakota so much. The Huskies look good, but
it's so fun.
It is. It is fun. I'm getting back to when I think I was struggling to understand where you were coming from when you're trying to describe that Western Series. Going into the Western Series, your expectation for the Huskies in that series is that you wanted them to sweep them, and not. I was struggling to grasp what you were getting. I think I understand now, though, as far as you thought that Western was a decent team, but St. Cloud on home ice, being able to make a statement, you kind of wanted to see the team make that kind of step. I would say this weekend fit the bill in that department, even though I think Western's probably a better team than North Dakota is. Although, I mean, they just got swept in Omaha, so who knows? But I guess we'll figure out, because Western hosts North Dakota this weekend.
Yeah.
But this one was one where, after the rout on Friday, I'm kind of having flashbacks to last year, where it was the 8-1.
Yep.
The 8-1 win, followed up by the North Dakota business suits. They come back off the mat, and at 3-0 early in that second period on Saturday, it was a very disappointing sort of script that it seemed like we were following again. Here we go again. And
then not only that, but I got kind of flashbacks also to maybe a little bit of that Bemidji game, where we looked just sluggish. Nothing was connecting. It was more of a testament to, I think, St. Cloud just not playing well versus our opponent playing a lot better. In my opinion,
I thought they looked
that first period of Saturday's game, and Reese Gaber's goal as well. We just looked lethargic, in my opinion.
I thought St. Cloud looked worse in that Bemidji series. I counted, there was, during the game, at the time it was 3-0. There was 4 golden opportunities for St. Cloud that they failed on each one of. They had 2 breakaways in the first period, and maybe one of them was early in the second period, right before the third goal. I thought a possible turning point was
that was Salquist, right?
Salquist was in the second. Who was it in the first? Was it Cranola in the first? Yeah, it was Cranola in the first, had the breakaway.
Yeah.
Or perhaps it was Miller. But there was one.
I know Cranola had one. Miller had one too.
Yeah, it's there was plenty of golden opportunities all weekend long. So apologies if we screw some of the timeline up here. There were so many of them, but I thought a potential turning point, especially when it was 3-0. Looking back at, I think it was about 5 or 6 minutes into the game, there was a play that Peart orchestrated, and a pass to an open shooter on the doorstep, wide open net, and they fired it wide. Figured that would have been a 1-0 St. Cloud lead, still scoreless at that time. It's like it would have been a 1-0 lead, and you would have stopped any sort of North Dakota scoring the first goal and gaining momentum and getting that Saturday split. And when they failed on that, and then also the 2 breakaways, and there was another golden opportunity in that sort of first 25 minutes of the game that St. Cloud failed on, I thought that was going to be the script, and especially when North Dakota extended the lead to 3-0 on that power play goal. It's the story here is failing to convert on these opportunities, failing to pounce on a horrendous North Dakota defensive team unit, as well as some goaltenders who are ripe for the picking. And here we go. But credit to the Huskies. This is the first time this year that they have came back from a deficit larger than 1 goal. And at 3 goal deficit to boot. But they never gave up. The huge goal there right after Gaber scores a 3rd goal, I think less than a minute later, you get that Bushy goal. Bushy the sniper, who knew that he was going to be this such a well of offense that you were able to
4-game
pick
point
from.
streak.
Right. Whatever is working. But that was a big one to just stop the bleeding, I think, and turn the momentum back to St. Cloud. And they were, from that point on, clearly the dominant team in that game, getting that late goal in the second period to make it 3-2. At that point, you're thinking, okay, even though they're down a goal going into the third period, as we mentioned last week, North Dakota can't close the job this year. Several third period leads that they've coughed up, and just the way that it was going, you could tell that St. Cloud really had a chance here. And you give it to guys like Okabe to finish the job. I mean, was it the second goal? I think that made it 3-2. I think that was the play that Anhorn made the great play, the great pass to Okabe, and he finished it. Anhorn had a great game on Saturday, coming back from, I thought, kind of a rough game for him on Friday. Anhorn, I thought, was very good on Saturday. And that play really sort of, I thought, was maybe the most important goal of the game for the Huskies. And then Okabe gets the next 2 as well, the game tying goal and the game winner with the natural hat trick. Again, some good plays there. Spoiler alert, Peart, I thought, was the star of the weekend for me, saving the puck from going out of the zone, setting up him and Lukey as well. Give him some props too for the primary assist to Okabe on the game tying goal, or was that the go ahead goal? One of the two. Again,
that was the go ahead goal.
Yeah, the 13
because
goals this weekend.
They
it's
went
hard
for
to keep
a review.
Clean. Yeah,
they went for a review. I don't know if they were reviewing for offsides.
I'm sure that's what it was. The TV guys seemed to think that it was goalie interference, but I would have bet that it was the offsides. That was the only close call.
Which
really
I like
to
that.
make.
At that point, I like that challenge by Brad Berry, because either you waste a timeout, which you needed to take a timeout there anyway. So I mean, that's a good call here on his part. Last natural hat trick for St. Cloud State since,
I don't know.
I guess.
This is. Maybe I'll say Okabe again, because I know he had that 4-goal game against Mankato. I'll say him.
That is correct. Yep, Okabe. I went back because I looked at the media guide and I tweeted out, because they had a little star next to Conrad Reeder in the 05 season. And I looked and I was like, oh man, that was our last one. and then the Huskies main page tweeted that they've had 5 natural hat tricks since like the 01 season. So I'm like, okay, well, that can't be the case then if Conrad Reeder was 5. So I looked back, and yeah, the media guide has all a bunch of errors. So I went back to the last 5 just for fun. Yep. So Okabe against Mankato. Johnny Brodzinski against Colgate.
Okay.
And then Conrad Reeder, like I said, and then Mark Hardigan in his 4-goal game.
Reeder has got to be that's the stumper of the question. Like, God, I haven't thought of that name in many years. Who was that against? Does it say who that was against?
Anchorage.
Okay, what about the Hardigan one?
Anchorage.
Another Anchorage. I was gonna say it's probably a lot of Anchorages, a lot of records, scoring records, accomplished against Anchorage.
Kind of a fun fact about that with Mark Hardigan, and obviously everyone knows, legend, should have won the Hobie Baker. But that was his only hat trick of his career at St. Cloud State, and it was 4 goals. So he never had a 3-goal game with St. Cloud State. He always had like 2 goals and an assist, or a goal and 3 assists, or something along those lines. I mean, his last year, I think his Hobie Baker, runner-up year was 37 goals, 38 assists for 75 points.
Not too shabby.
Top of my head, hey, we'll take it.
Yeah.
So. Just kind of overall throughout the whole weekend, kind of want to go back first.
I know we're going all over the place here.
We're all over.
Hopefully, you're sticking with us at least here, but so much to recap. But
yeah, exactly. Before last podcast, what we're talking about is we were kind of worried about the start for the Huskies. And North Dakota's kind of in trouble. They're going to come out fast. Really, I thought we had great chances right off the hop on Friday. I thought we were controlling the play. We were doing really well.
Yeah.
And there were just a couple of shifts where, I also talked about the podcast where North Dakota will get into this rhythm and they'll get into the buzzsaw, and they were able to really control the zone on, some of those plays and some of those goals that they had. I looked at that Jackson Blake goal. I did a kind of a rundown of the timer from when they entered the zone to when they scored the goal. They were in the zone for about 2 minutes.
Oh, yeah. And
just
playing keep away.
And
playing keep away the entire time. They did that at a couple of times in the weekend. But they didn't seem to...
Later on that period, they did it another time. It was in for, I think, about 1:45 seconds. And Jackson Castor came up with 2 very big saves. And then they also missed the net on 1 key chance. And then he was able to freeze the puck. And that was pretty much the last good chance that North Dakota had the rest of Friday.
Yeah, it's they definitely did have some possession, some spurts where they were really dominant on possession. It didn't always translate into quality scoring chances. Like I was saying, like that they didn't seem to mesh as a group. Like it's, I mean, I can watch Gaber and sort of marvel at the skating and the stick handling, and it is kind of nice to see a shift like that. But but when it doesn't really lead to much, and there were certain times that there were some quality chances off of that, as you mentioned, Castor coming up with a couple of big saves and scoring a goal on one of those sequences as well. So it's not like that was the only result of these kinds of possession spurts. But just on the whole for the weekend, a struggle to really establish a consistent offensive presence in their offensive zone. And some of the goals getting back to that 3-0 lead that they built, that first goal, and the first goal on each night scored by not one of their highest scorers. I mean, Ness I think he's got 12 points in his career, and I think 4 of them are against the Huskies. He seems to only score against St. Cloud, and that was a harmless looking enough shot. As you mentioned, I thought that St. Cloud, that came about 3.5 minutes into the game, where that was the first shot for North Dakota in the game.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I thought a great sign to see that St. Cloud came out and dictating the play for that first 3 minutes, and then even for the next 5 minutes after that goal as well. And so it just was disappointing that a shot like that goes in, off the stick of one of their, not one of their high-scoring guys. And then on Saturday, Constantini, who had been benched on Friday, he's only got 1 point this year. I thought that was a play where St. Cloud was a little too passive, giving him way too much space. And a shot I think that Bassi would like back. He got a piece of it, but then it trickled off and in for that first goal. So, I mean, I thought that the start, especially on Friday, the start of the weekend, I thought that was a good sign that St. Cloud was definitely not playing passive, as I've mentioned in the past, with the tendency that this team has. But still, North Dakota being able to get the first goal on each night and then having a lead in each night after the first period as well. It's good to see, like, getting back to this, like, this was a statement weekend, even if it is versus a not so great opponent. Great, because there is a rivalry there, so every time you beat them and you have the quotient of green in the building that you do, being able to shut them up and also just make the statement of how many goals you scored, the variance of the scoring that you had, the ability to come back in both games, especially 3-goal deficit on Saturday. And then basically end up winning, going away with each game as well. Really good sign. A team is being able to take care of a lesser opponent, and I think that's what St. Cloud was able to do this weekend. So, from the perspective of they beat a team that's not so great, maybe tamp your enthusiasm, but I'm not going to, because anytime you beat these guys and you sweep them, and you score 13 goals on them, it's especially sweet, especially because, like last year, you couldn't finish that job after the road on Friday, able to finish the job this time. So, yeah, I'm really positive about this team right now.
Yeah.
And I mentioned the different variants of offense. I thought that Kupka coming back is a big sign, getting a goal in each game and getting the types of goals that he got, both grindy, one was off his leg, a little deflection, and the other a nice little tip. These were late in the game, so they weren't key goals necessarily. Not to say that he hasn't shown the tendency to score clutch goals this year. 2 game winners already on the year, but also on that
goal on Saturday was, that was a big insurance goal.
Yeah, that's right. So, that was a 5-3 to make it 5-3. Right.
That made it 5-3 with about 6 minutes left to go. So yeah, that was a nice exhale there.
No, you're right. And then also, I just like the fact that we're having guys that are willing and able, and showing a proficiency at parking in front of the net, getting some screens, getting the rebounds, getting the dirty types of goals. I like Salquist's screen on that Okabe go-ahead goal. I thought that was a big key, great shot by Okabe, but credit to Salquist for providing a screen there in front of DeRitter to make that save any harder than it would have been. It's just and we also get the usual suspects of Kranola pops in a couple. Miettinen, and the defense is, Peart, as I said, it really stepped up this weekend. Anhort played really good on Saturday. I thought guys like Jack Rogers played really good on Friday night. And so
also another guy coming back with Chase Brand. I thought on Friday he was a force too.
Right. Rosborough, who seems to be getting more action. Molinar, we didn't see him at all. I'm wondering if he is either hurt or just he hasn't all really seemed to earn the play, so just might be passed up for hungrier players at this point. Again, another variance of scoring as far as, we scored a shorthanded goal, 6th on the year for the Huskies. We're still keeping pace with beating the 10 shorties from last year. Couple of power play goals. You had even the extra attacker goal, basically doubled up on the power play by scoring the extra attacker and then also scoring on the ensuing power play. You scored a empty netter. You scored plenty of 5-on-5 goals. So there wasn't just weighted towards, this wasn't just a power play weekend where they carried the team. No, they were able to score in pretty much every scenario that you can. So it's just, there's hard to take many negatives from this weekend. I hope that they don't get too high, on their supply here. Miami's coming up, and Miami's not good, but you've shown a ability to cough one up to Miami, especially in Miami in the past, and let's hope that's not the case. You just got to, again, focus on it. Hopefully this wasn't too much of an emotional sort of climax for you, but you just got one more series here until a Christmas break, and just want to continue to hit the pedal of the metal here and take care of business kind of weekend upcoming with Miami. But getting back to the North Dakota series, this was, again, 2 thumbs up weekend for me. Loved to see it and had a lot of fun. And what else do you got? I know I've been talking for a while. What take over?
Well, I mean, I think it was, and obviously we talked about Spalaci's shot, which shouldn't have gone in. Yeah, the Crookshank shorty, which was a bad play by Helston all around.
Yep.
Yep. A very sneaky, deceiving shot by Crookshank too. I think Helston kind of expected him to make another move or whatnot, and all of a sudden just a quick fire to go 5-hole, and he looked kind of abused there. Now correct me if I'm wrong. So that makes it 3-2, and I believe there was a moment where North Dakota had a breakaway that Anhorn, I think, was able to get back and break it up. And then shortly after that, there was that delayed penalty, and that was kind of what I thought would be the turning point of the game. Because they miss, they make that that breakaway. Who knows what happens after that? But it was shortly after that breakaway was stopped, is where that delayed penalty that Peart scored. And then, like you said, that ensuing power play where we scored, and after that, it was pretty much all gravy there. Which, that whole extra attacker situation with Peart, that goal was really set up by doing exactly what North Dakota did to us right at the beginning of the game, where we were able to really work the zone, work the perimeter. They got tired, and Peart showed great patience, and Helston was completely out of position to put that away. And the power play goal, that was a bad clear by North Dakota. Again, that their defense faltered on that one. Miettinen was kind of able to bury that shot. And then, to make it 6-2, where Peart was able to, kind of win a board battle to push the puck up ahead to Miettinen, who was able to feed Kronala for the goal. So it was a lot of will, a lot of determination on that Friday game. But I think it was that stop of that breakaway by Castor that really kind of sparked the Huskies to carry us to victory there on Friday, because we were able to just kind of put everything into place after that.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. I again, the sequence of when exactly that. I think you're right, though, that it was still when it was 3-2. I don't know if it was, 30 seconds later is when that delayed penalty sequence took place or not, but I think that is correct. And that, like I said, I thought I was surprised that Helston was not pulled after that third goal. Clearly, Barry did not want to pull him mid-period, I think, fearing he's killing his confidence. He's going to be heckled on his way off the rink or back to the bench. You had to wait till after the second to pull him, and you were down 3 instead of down 1. Who knows if they would have still scored those goals on DeRitter? It's very possible they could have, but I thought that that penalty, the delayed penalty goal, and then the power play goal after that was the decider of that game. And if you want to rewind back even further to that stop of that breakaway, Exactly. I definitely agree that those were the big plays that St. Cloud was just North Dakota had some chances, but St. Cloud had more of them, and they were able to convert on more of them, and making that defense pay and the goaltending pay for their mistakes. That's a very, very good sign to see, indeed.
And then, but like I want to say it was Anhorn, but I don't remember. But I remember there was that big stop. But I do agree with you. Other that I think was one of Anhorn's tougher games. Um, but in the end, obviously, it wasn't really needed that much. Saturday's game, like I said, we were a little sluggish right off the hop. I thought we just looked lethargic. We did have a couple of chances that didn't really convert on, and 2-0 after one. Like Brett Larson has really put a focus on resilience and the resiliency of this team, and that's kind of what their motto is. And after their second goal to make it 2-1 on Friday, that the high sticking that wasn't called as a high stick, and they went through a review in that. They didn't get bogged down. They didn't get they didn't slump their shoulders. The wheels didn't come off. They were kind of able to right that ship.
Talking about the first goal on Saturday, because there
Was that the first? I thought that was the second goal.
That was the first goal on Saturday. I thought he said the second goal on Friday, but because there was a lengthy review. You're talking the high stick from like the far blue line.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first. That was the Constantini goal on Saturday.
Okay, that was the Constantini goal. Oh, okay, gotcha. That's right. Okay, well,
yeah, I don't.
Still stands. So, I'm sorry. Anything you want to say about that goal?
I thought that they thought they got jobbed on that review. That's one where it's like I wish that we didn't have reviews in hockey, because I don't think that had any real material effect on the play. Again, it happened at the North Dakota blue line. They didn't call it, and then what's more inexcusable to me is just the fact that they let Constantine just walk in. Spalacy, you can see he's defending the shooter or his line mate, and just letting him walk in, and then Bassey, like I said, kind of dribbled it in, or let it dribble in. And it feel like you could see, like, there was several times I saw that Larson was doing like the hand wave gesture to the refs, missing calls and stuff. It seemed like he was really heated, and I thought they sort of fed off the negative energy of, oh, they screwed us, because they really thought that was going to be overturned. And it was a long review, 5 minutes, and then you lost your timeout, and you had this sense of defeat. I thought that affected them. I thought they sort of fed off that negatively for the next, like, that's how when they scored the second goal too. So it's like, I just wish that just would have been a goal, and you would have shaken it off, and then just, been resilient, as you said, and not gotten down to the 3-0 lead. But, it is what it is, I suppose. But, yeah, that first 25 minutes of the game on Saturday was not great. Said they did have their fair amount of grade A's that they just didn't convert on, but defensively didn't play all that hot. And North Dakota able to set up shop on their power play, especially getting 2 of those goals with a man advantage. But able to have that quick response after the third goal really did sort of right the ship, and then slowly but surely the momentum did start to swing St. Cloud's way, and we ended up being happy in that third period. But yeah, definitely some intrigue on the weekend, some controversy here and there, and it wouldn't be a North Dakota weekend without that kind of stuff. So
right, exactly.
It's to be expected with these two teams.
And that's where that resiliency really came in. Is after Gaber's goal, it's 3-0, and in my mind, it's I was like, okay, let's just show some kind of life before the end of the period. And then about 2 seconds later, after I thought that, Bushy scores. So at that time, I'm like, okay, 3-1. We are in no worse position than we were 2 minutes ago. So that's fine. And I was hoping for a little bit more from them after that goal, but it was still a little bit lethargic and whatnot. And then I thought it was, yeah, with about 2-3 minutes left to go in that second period, everything, I felt like it was just a flip of the switch. So I don't know if it was like the timeout, the last TV timeout, or what, but I thought ever since then the Huskies were just buzzing, and I think that just really stemmed from that top line taking over, and that's, you know, Okabe, Mietinen, Kronola. I mean, I thought they just completely kind of took over the game. I did predict on Twitter that they were going to move Kupka back to the second line role and switch out Ingram, who is still learning. Had a lot of penalties called on him. But overall, other than the penalties, I thought he was pretty solid. But I mean, I'm really interested to see if against Miami, if Kupka's going to be on that second line again, and if they're going to put Ingram down on the third, or if they're going to have Ingram learn from Miller and Cruikshank too. So that's going to be kind of an interesting thing to watch. And then, but yeah, just Okabe taking the game over. Natural hat trick, making it 3-2, and down by 1 going into the third. I felt really comfortable. We know that North Dakota hasn't been able to hold the lead. You could say that's their trademark of the season so far. You might as well just give that trademark to Brianna Berry if you want to, but that's pretty much just the sign of what they do is they just cough up leads. And so when we made it 3-2, I'm like, all right, we're gonna come out firing on all cylinders. And then first shift, Okabe pops it in again, and then finishes, and everything just kind of fell into place there in that third period. So it's awesome, to see them kind of come back. Awesome to see the scoring from, like you said, all different types of lines. Shout out to the defense. I thought, as a whole, I there was some offensive sparks and chances from Trey Ball. I saw him down in the offensive zone a couple times. He was skating with so much confidence. I thought Wiley on the weekend was good. And Brady Zemer as well. I thought he's been, ever since that he has come in over the past couple of games, I thought he is also has been just fantastic. He didn't play on Saturday, but I thought he played a fantastic game on Friday because they had Reiners there in on Saturday. But it's going to be an interesting conundrum there when Meyer comes back. Who do you sit on this back end? I don't have a good answer. I really like Zemer back there, and I'm afraid he's going to be the odd one out.
Yeah, I think you're more of a fan of Zemer than I am. I would think he's going to be him and Reiners would be the natural guys that lose out the ice time, I think, to Meyer. But yeah.
I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention I thought Wiley had a really strong series as well.
Yep, and I think I've already mentioned Lutke. So, I wanted to save my praise of Peart for a segment in a little bit, hint, hint. But Lutke also, again, showing no ill effects to his injury, playing as a +4 on Saturday, and getting that assist on the winner, on the Okabe winners. Nice little feed to set him up, and just, he's got the offensive edge to his game, but he very rarely does he make some defensive miscues either. Whereas like Anhorn, that's rare too, to see him kind of play a little loose on the back end, which I think was his issue on Friday, taking a little too many chances. But 90% of the time that he's taking those chances this year, I'm talking about Anhorn, he's been able to, succeed on those attempts. And one bad game, I wouldn't even call it a bad game really from Anhorn, but one meh game out of 16. We'll certainly take it, especially in comparison to North Dakota, who could really use some help on their blue line. But
and I don't think it was that Anhorn played poorly. I think he just
He just made some
poor decisions.
Yeah. More so than we're used to.
And Peart, I think on Friday at least, I thought he was just a little bit slow with his decision making, and so I think he was selected, no surprise, to the World Junior preliminary roster. So that
for this coming one, I didn't see that.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. He played on the team last year too, so it makes sense.
Yep, it makes sense. And also they just released the Stars of the Week, which had Okabe as the forward of the week and Peart as defenseman of the week.
Yeah, I guess I got to disagree with saying that Peart was slow on Friday. I thought he was the best player for St. Cloud on Friday. He was really impressive to me, and dictating the play from the point in a way that I guess isn't that rare now. You think of a guy like a Sean in recent St. Cloud history as well, but I think Peart might turn out to be a tick better. We're really seeing the development this year. I don't know why you would, but you can rewind it to some of the episodes last year where we were a little rough on Peart, and I think for good reason. I thought he struggled his first year, and you have to put into context the youth and his lack of junior experience to the extent that most college players have.
That's true.
He only had a handful of USHL games under his belt when he came here, and so he really was learning on the fly last year. And it was a bit of an adjustment period that at times is a little tough to watch. But this year, those sort of the times where it's Peart, he's the only guy back on a defensive play, and you swallow hard, and you're like, let's see how this goes. Really hasn't been that at all this year, and you're seeing the assertive, offensive minded part of his game really step to the fore and become kind of a force to reckon with. And I thought on Friday especially, and then Saturday too, I thought that he was very visible on the ice, and I thought his best weekend so far at the college level. And I don't know if we do want to.
I just thought there were a couple times where I just felt like he could have moved the puck or make his decisions just a little bit faster that he didn't. But other than that, yeah, I thought he had a really good weekend. So
yeah, I don't know if we want to transition that into our POW, but yeah, I guess I've been waxing poetic, and I did have to, after the Okabe, especially being the natural hat trick, I did have to. God, do I have to give it to Okabe now? But Peart had that empty netter on Saturday, and so that really put it over the hump.
I don't know if it counts because I don't know if he called bank. Like I think you have to call bank on that.
Have you seen a bank shot empty netter before like that? Clearly he wasn't trying to score. He was just trying to clear the zone, and worked out like a charm. That one was a nice for all you geometry fans. I think that was a fitting way to end the weekend. I think,
especially with that little bit of a slow roller.
Yeah,
kind of as Gino said.
It turned to the angle. It was perfect.
It turned the angle, and like if you're the defenseman trying to get back, skating at the same speed, that's just kind of like a car crash waiting to happen. Is that puck crossing the line. So
yeah.
So Peart's your Go Huskies Woo player of the weekend.
2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points on the weekend. Like I said, he was pretty solid defensively as well. And not to throw Okabe, or to ignore him, or ignore guys like Cranola or any, like I said, the usual suspects. Like I said, there were plenty of candidates this weekend. There were a
lot of candidates.
It's always a nice problem to have. But I don't believe, again, we do have the tendency, if a guy hasn't gotten a POW previously, to throw some love. I believe Okabe got it last week, or the last series, the CC series for me. So I'm going to spread the love a little bit here. And
sure.
But even if I didn't give it to Okabe last weekend, I think I still would have given it to Peart because I thought both nights. And I think we're settling on Peart. We've gone Peart. I'm thinking Peart. I'm sticking with it from now on.
I'm sticking with Peart. I actually started to really love how that sounds versus the other one. I do know I go back and forth on Cronulla and
Oh,
Cronulla.
I mean, I
do
just
know that.
I made a concerted effort to say Spellacy because I'm very much
Spellacy and
Spalacy.
Yep,
But I'm pretty sure it is Spellacy. Yeah, we butcher names here. We don't try.
exactly.
But sometimes there's some tough ones on the team. But just ask the CCPA announcer. Yeah, there are some mouthfuls on this team. So, but anyway, you say it.
Well, that's why Jason Bryant also got the job and not me. So.
That is correct.
I don't have to worry about it now on this podcast.
Yeah, but anyway, you say it. I got Peart for my guy. Who do you got for the pile?
Well, go Huskies, woo.
Sure.
He had a dilemma. He had to go kind of back and forth. I asked him on Sunday. He's like, I got to think about it. I don't know. There's a lot. He's like, he's between a couple. Do I go through points all around? Sparks provided everything, and he ended up settling on the sniper.
Really?
He ended up going with Brendan Bushy.
Back to back.
Back to back. So I mean, talking about spreading the love around. No, go Huskies, woo. I mean, we might as well just call this the Brendan Bushy Award. For back to back. So, but basically, points both games. For someone not normally known for points, incredible defense, plus ratings all around. His goal actually was a good laser of a shot. So it wasn't that lucky bounce or anything. 4-game point streak, but also he was just kind of solid all around. So it was just kind of the all aspects of the game go Huskies woo. So he went with the sniper.
Yeah, and that goal was a huge goal. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not going to say the most important of the weekend because obviously there was some candidates in that, but 3-0, but that got you back in it. So a huge goal.
And what, 20 seconds after?
Something like that. It was less than a minute. Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, and I was in the same boat, kind of going back and forth who I'm going to pick. I am going to pick Okabe though. And the reason why I'm going to, because beforehand I was kind of thinking Miettinen was going to be mine, actually. Because I thought he was able to drive the play. Cronulla, obviously he had a little more goals. He was the number 1 star, I believe, on Friday. But, he also got into a little bit of the penalty trouble as well, as he's apt to do. But I thought Miettinen just all around strong until Okabe kind of took the game over. And the reason why I'm mostly picking Okabe, first off, that top line for us had the international exchange line had 10 points on the weekend. So they were really a dominant force. And I just think I'm having a different conversation and a different tone about the whole weekend if Okabe doesn't jumpstart this team like he did on Saturday's game. So that's why I'm giving it to him.
Yeah, it's a good pick. Bushy's a good pick too. I mean, like I said, there was plenty of candidates this weekend, so it's good that we had 3 different ones because I think that's one of the weekends. It's one of those weekends where it's not just an obvious. We all 3 say the same one. It's. Yep. I like it.
Perfect. So, switching gears here. So we got one more before the break. We haven't, I guess, officially worked out our show and our schedule for the break and whatnot. So we'll get back to you on that.
We'll definitely have one next week to recap.
But, yeah.
Yep. We'll definitely we might take one off. There is a couple of off weekends. We might have an off weekend too, or an off week, I suppose. But stay tuned.
We might do that. We might. I might just have a show. Also, maybe I'll have a guest on. I know Jake Baskin likes to talk about World Juniors, so maybe I'll do a preview with him. I don't know. There's some things.
Okay, I guess I can't be a part of that. So sure, yeah, you can do that. Sounds good.
Do you want to be a part of it?
Well, duh.
Well, I didn't know if you You've got, I don't know, you got a half marathon going on.
I commit to this every week. I'm surprised that we're even having this discussion because I'm fine with doing it every week here. We don't. I mean, I'm fine with not taking a break.
Lord knows we love to talk, so it's awesome.
Yeah. You think that we're not going to have things to talk about on December 19th?
Very true. But yeah, I mean, there'll be no shortage of topics that we'll have, and especially if Pierre. I don't know if I would imagine because that game is the 7th and 8th. I think is the Minnesota series, so he's probably not going to miss any time. There's just we have that exhibition game, don't we?
Yes. The weekend before.
That's whatever.
I would have to look at. I did not show prep for World Juniors, as you can clearly tell. It might, if it's possible that the championships would be that weekend, the 6th, 7th, and 8th, but because it usually wraps up with the first week of January. So yeah. I don't know. It might wrap up that Sunday the 1st, or it usually goes a little.
If we do have a preview show, we'll talk about it.
He might, I guess he might miss that Gopher series, which would be a loss. But as we're saying, who's going to sit when Meyer comes back? I mean, we have the depth, so
yeah.
But I guess I wouldn't be surprised if it is that weekend. But I guess we'll kick that can down the road and cross that bridge when you get there. I guess I'm mixing my metaphors, but
let's cross that bridge when we kick that can. So let's talk about Miami. Heading out to Oxford. Sitting there at the cellar of the conference right now, and it's Miami is not really seeing a lot of improvement from really what they have been the last couple of years. Last year St. Cloud just absolutely hammered them. Popped in 19 goals there on the weekend. I do remember that very fondly. But it's a series where you just can't take. These are the ones where you just need to get the points. Right now you're second in the standing, 2 points behind Denver. And that's these are the ones that you just really have to shut the door and kind of keep the pressure on. To kind of stay where you are. And I foresee that happening. No reason, I think, to kind of change anything, but, Miami's power play isn't that great. Penalty kill isn't that great. Their goaltending, Pearson, we've said our thoughts about him many times before. So it's definitely a weekend where Huskies should be ready, show up to play, and I think we're going to be able to kind of really take care of business there in Miami or in Oxford.
Yeah, going down to the Sunshine State, it's always it can be a challenge, keeping focus, in between the palm trees. It's whenever you're in Miami-Dade County, you can be easily distracted. So you just got to keep focus. And yeah, I think when we were previewing the CC series, this is Miami of Ohio. Don't email me any correction emails. It's just a bit, so just enjoy.
Actually, you're thinking of Miami.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good bit. So when we were previewing the CC series, I said I would be disappointed with 3 points or less. Let's copy and paste that for this. I'm not going to say 6 or nothing. It's a road series and all that, and conference opponent, but as you very tactfully, I appreciated the amount of tact you were giving as far as your summation of Miami's season so far. I'll be a little bit more blunt. This ain't a good team, and you should finish the deal. You should win 2 games here. But I'm just acknowledging that it's hockey and things can happen that don't make sense somewhat frequently. But this is, St. Cloud's a better team than Miami is. Miami can't score. I think that's their biggest issue. Just 33 goals this year. It's the fewest in the conference. I think it's in the top 10 or 12 fewest in the country. Top scorer right now has got Barbolini at 14 points in 14 games. Some point a game pace for him, but after that, 8 points is your second leading scorer. They got this Red Savage, who's got some World Juniors experience himself. Would have played with Peart. Would have played with Peart. Still struggling with it. I know. But he played with him in the previous World Juniors, and drafted player, but just 8 points in 14 games this year, and so they just don't really have a lot of there when it comes to offense or defense, for that matter. As you mentioned, Pearson, who's had some success with Miami. The COVID year was good enough to earn a preseason goalie of the year honor last year, which did not work out so well for him. And he's sitting right now, 905 save percentage, goals against above 3. A lot of that's attributable to the team he plays for. Doesn't make it very easy on him. He's going to see a lot of rubber on the weekend, assuming he's going to be starting both games. Their backup has just really only gotten token work. So I'm expecting 2 games of Pearson here.
2 games of him starting. I'm sure we'll chase him.
He gave up all 19 of those last year, though, if you remember. It was not pulled at all.
Right, I forgot.
So there's that.
Gave up all 19.
All 19. There was no empty netters in that 19. I should remind you as well. And so he was in net for all of those. I don't expect it to be that kind of series this weekend, but we saw in CC, I think, 1 tight one and 1 boat race. I think that's a nice gauge here, or maybe an expectation. Maybe who knows which one of those is going to be the close one, but I think that's a decent par for the course here, maybe to expect. And I just, like I said, I worry a little bit about sort of an emotional hangover here coming into this series. And I like the fact that it's actually a road series, because you get the road trip bonding, and it's the get out of your comfort zone a little bit. If they were still at home this weekend, maybe that'd be more sort of emotional hangover, I think, fear for me. But so I like the fact that they're getting out on the road and getting some of that local Florida cuisine, maybe, and
Florida skyline chili,
the spaghetti with chili. Yeah, that's what all those crazy Floridians like. I don't get it, but maybe they can have some of that, and hopefully they like their chili hot, as a wise man once said. So, hoping that this is going to be a good series for St. Cloud. Confident at it. I mean, on paper, should be 2 wins, but they don't play the games on paper. Let's just sit back and wait and enjoy the games. Another curveball too. They play an early game on Saturday. If there is anyone that wants to pre-call like a letdown, it is a 5 p.m. local start on Saturday, which is a weird time. Motzko would be in favor of it, I think, because it would get him practice for the NCAAs to play at a weird start time. So there's that factor. If it just more so, I'm just giving you a heads up. Don't wait till 6 or whatever the normal time would be, Central Time, for Miami games. It is a little earlier on Saturday, so be sure to check your TV guide to see.
Check your NCHC TV guide.
Check your msctv.com and be sure not to miss it. Should be a fun series. Let's hope we get a pair of good results here this weekend.
Yeah, it's Yeah, so we got local time, local Minnesota time, since I have to clarify since you're in Arizona as well. But St. Cloud against Miami, that's going to be at 4. And then Omaha at Colorado College, that's going to be at 7. Same time as Denver, Minnesota, but also that North Dakota at Western Michigan, that game is at 5
They're
local
nice and
time. So
nice and spread out.
nice and spread out, but still, I mean, that's also kind of a weird time too. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe Western Michigan normally plays
So that
6
would be.
o'clock games on Eastern time. But
I guess that is.
anyway,
I thought they played 7 o'clock games all the time. 7 o'clock local. Like I know Duluth always does. Miami's been doing this 5 p.m. local time. They did that last year too, which I don't mind because there's usually not a game going on at that time, so you can watch. There's a game that comes on a little earlier, so I've been able to watch more Miami than I probably normally would, just because they're the only action, at least like the first period or so. Again, you're not able to watch a real great team in that window of exclusivity that they have. It is Miami hockey after all, but it's hockey. It's college hockey, and so there you got it. So yeah, we'll early start time on Saturday, but shouldn't be too much of an issue. Hoping for some lots of goals and lots of wins.
Miami here, last win, their second game against North Dakota on the 19th of November. But before that, they have had a string of losses and also a shootout loss in there, where they actually started the season 4-1-1. So
yeah, including a win at Lowell, which was
Lowell,
probably their best win of the year. But yeah, since conference play started, just that one win at North Dakota, and should also mention they did not play last weekend, so they're coming off a bye weekend. We'll see if the rest. We'll see if that plays a factor, especially on Friday. I think that's another. St. Cloud should always come out dictating the play. That's sort of my soapbox, but especially this weekend because you got a team that's been sitting around for 2 weeks. Just jump on them. I want a goal in the first 5 minutes on Friday, and if they do, loop this audio and put it on next week's podcast. I'm giving you an assignment here, but it wouldn't be as great as I remember last year when I called both scores of the sweep versus Bemidji. That's true. I don't think I'll ever have a call like that,
I don't think so.
But this will be close. I'm calling it. First 5 minutes, they're going to score a goal on Friday.
Before that North Dakota win that they had on the 19th, their last win before that was October 22nd against Canisius. So it's a team St. Cloud should handle, and so it's I'm excited to see this team just kind of take care of business. I am feeling a lot more confident with this team that we're able to than a lot of other previous teams that we've had. Sometimes I'm a little bit more nervous about it. Obviously not some of those incredibly high scoring ones, but kind of the ones in recent history where sometimes we played down to our opponent a little bit more than we should have. I don't feel as nervous with this team, but this is definitely one. I think it's maybe not easily, but like this is a weekend where 5 or 6 points I think is going to be key. I do like your prediction of one boat race and one tighter one. I see that kind of being the formula here. So, and then I mean, going into the break with just an absolutely amazing record in my opinion, and just with how well this team has played. So I'm incredibly excited for this team, and I'm incredibly excited with how we're winning games. And like you said, this last series against North Dakota, where it was a lot more of getting into the prime areas, some grindy, some greasy goals. I'm looking forward to more of that. Just kind of getting down to business versus always looking for that extra flashy pass or whatnot. So let's keep this ball rolling, huh?
Yeah, as you mentioned, with the conference points and whatever, kind of snuck under my radar. Just 2 points out of first place right now. St. Cloud sitting at 17 points. Denver's leading the way at 19. Every team, I like this. Every team has played 8 games. There's a lot of conferences like Hockey East. You got Connecticut's played 13, and Maine has played 8. Like that's like this stretch of so everyone has not been playing the same amount of games, but everyone's equal right now as far as games played in the NCHC. So and it's predictably it's bunched up early in the season. You're not going to have that much separation pre-Christmas, but St. Cloud's at 17. Denver's going to Duluth. We know Duluth is struggling.
Miami is kind of separating themselves.
Yes, and North Dakota too. Shout out to them. 12 points out of first right now, trying for their 4 straight Penrose. Not looking so hot right now in Grand Forks to keep the cup. But St. Cloud, I don't like to do, especially early in the season, but I'll do it anyway. They sweep this series and Denver splits with Duluth. We know that Duluth's not great, but going into Duluth is never like a guaranteed sweep for anybody. St. Cloud could be good chance, I think, that St. Cloud could be leading the pack here at Christmas time. So again, don't want to get too ahead of myself, but this is a team, St. Cloud, just winning. Took them their 4th conference game to get their first regulation win in conference. The overtime win in Denver, then the 2 losses, the Denver loss, and then Western Michigan loss. So this is really, 5-game winning streak right now all in conference has vaulted them to number 2 in the conference, and certainly got sniffing distance here for Penrose. Which if we were, I was the one that was higher on this team versus between me and Weldie. I had him at 4th. I wasn't really thinking Penrose was even going to be really in play this year for the Huskies. And there's still plenty of time. I feel we're a third of the way through the conference schedule. But hey, it's there for the taking, especially this year. It looks like Denver is going to be your main competition for the Penrose. So circle that series with Denver and St. Cloud in January. It's possibly could be the deciding factor in who takes first this year. But don't want to get too ahead of myself, but also want to put that out there that's part of the goal right now. Players want to be hunting for that.
Now, I know you say that, but I don't know what to make of this Omaha team.
Yeah.
And they're sitting just 2 points back, and I remember that I said early on, maybe it was our season preview podcast, that looking at St. Cloud's schedule, that series against Omaha, because remember I picked Omaha dead last in the conference, and which was a shock to you. And
I don't know about a shock. It was more so like, you really don't think Miami's got this on lockdown? More so than more so than a gasp that Omaha was so bad. But
I said, because that Omaha, we only play them once. We play them at Omaha, and that's the second to last weekend. And I said, circle that series, because that's going to be the series where we need to get the points, to what I said. I think that time was the battle for home ice. Now I'm circling that series right now as that might be our chance to really set ourselves up to clinch the Penrose or be in really good position. I don't see Denver slowing down, but Omaha might be kind of right in the thick of it the way they've been playing as of late. I watched a little bit of their series. They had an absolutely bonkers game on Friday against Western Michigan, where they ended up winning 7-6. Where again, Western Michigan came out to a 3-goal lead, and then Omaha rattled off 7, only to have Western Michigan come back with 3 in the third period to make it unnecessarily close. But then they were able to, kind of lock it down there 3-1 on Saturday. So I don't really know what to make of that team, but it's something I'm definitely going to watch. Who do they have this next weekend?
They go to CC. The thing for I agree that I think Omaha. I think well maybe not. I was gonna say clearly the surprise in the positive direction in the NCHC this year. Although you could make a case for St. Cloud being that top surprising team too. And there's been some definitely negative surprises with North Dakota and Duluth. But I don't think anyone was thinking Omaha was going to be this high in the conference really at any point in the season. The thing that I think that's going for them, one big factor, well, two big factors. The NCHC isn't as hot as it normally is. So there's a bit of a gap there, an opening that they can take. Secondly, their schedule is favorable.
Which we'll put a pin in that because I want to get back to that.
Sure.
But continue.
Their schedule is favorable because they're already done with Denver, who is generally their arch nemesis, and they have already gotten a win in Denver. They don't play Denver again this year, and they only play St. Cloud once. So who we're kind of seeing as kind of the de facto 1-2 in the conference, whichever way you put them, Denver and St. Cloud, Omaha only has those guys one series each. So they still got 2 series left against Miami, 2 series against CC, including this weekend. Now, I think last year what screwed them was not winning those Miami and CC games because I think they lost 3 games total to those 2 teams combined. And it'll be a big weekend for them this weekend to see if they can do like one of these take care of business weekends, especially on the road. We'll kind of figure out if they're going to be for real. I mean, this Randall they have, I think, is leading the league, leading the country in scoring. He's got 14 goals. So, I mean, they've been able to get some offense. I still think that goaltending situation and defense is eventually going to show some cracks. And we saw, winning a game, giving up 6 goals, not something that is generally sustainable. So I'm still not sold on them, but I would certainly at this point not be surprised if, say, they get a home ice position for the playoffs. That they would probably likely lose that series.
I was going to say, I could just see them getting home ice and then playing North Dakota, and then North Dakota winning.
Yeah.
Kind of how I see that going.
Yeah. So it's definitely, it's intriguing. I did watch that third period of the game on Saturday, and yeah, they're an interesting team, but man, that announcer just drives me absolutely batty. Whoever is the guy that taught him the 1-2-2 forecheck crap, he actually said these were, he said 1-1-3 forecheck. He said this at some point in the game. Whoever is the guy that taught him that, because that's not something that people naturally pick up watching the game. It's not something in organic. It doesn't just happen organically. He had been taught that by someone who he was probably interning under. I want to find that guy and lock him in like a porta potty. I want to like back up a truck like so the back hits the door of the porta potty so they can't get out. And I want to see both of those guys in that porta potty, seeing which kind of forecheck they need to do to get out of that porta potty, just to teach him a bit of a lesson. It was hard. It was hard to listen to. But getting back to Omaha, yeah, they're a real kind of head scratching team, but. Certainly, they've got my attention. Now they just have to, they've got to kind of just take care of the stuff take care of the games that they should. I mentioned, you mentioned, I think a couple weeks ago, using the pairwise predictor so early in the season. I did that with their Niagara sweep.
Oh, yeah.
So I believe they're at 20 right now. I gotta double check this. I checked this on Saturday after the game.
Well, that's why I wanted to put a pin in what you said earlier. Is that because I looked at the pairwise yesterday? Denver and St. Cloud 3-4. The next closest NCHC teams is Western Michigan and Omaha, and they're at 18 and 19. So right now we only have 2 teams in.
Right, and Omaha. So at 19. Just winning one of those games against Niagara, they'd be 14 inside the pairwise. Just winning one of those games. I didn't do it let's see if I can do it if they sweep that series. But just one of the games, they would jump into pairwise territory. So that shows you not so much how big like a big win can be, but how impactful a bad loss can
Yeah.
be. If they would have swept the series, they'd be at 8 right now. So basically jumping 5 or 6 spots with each of those, as they turned out to be losses. So, and that's the thing too. I mean, they're non-conference. They still got St. Lawrence coming up.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really have, and like I said, done with Denver and only one series left with St. Cloud. So they don't have a ton of opportunities here to pick up like a big pairwise win. The St. Cloud games might be the best opportunity for that for the rest of the season. And who knows, Western could get back in position, or North Dakota, or Duluth, or one of these teams. But right now, they don't have a ton of opportunities. But they definitely, if they just continue to pick up the quantity of wins, certainly, yeah, you're at 19 at this point in the season. That you can't write them off for a tournament possibility. Yeah, they're just they're kind of the wild card of the league right now, because even now seeing a weekend of North Dakota, mine eyes have seen the glory here of how poor this team is right now, and they have talent, they could turn it around, but I'll take the under on whatever you're setting, whatever line you're setting on North Dakota right now. I'm taking the under. And
you can't trust that goalie tandem. They're bad.
And Duluth too. I mean, just splitting. I guess we're kind of melding this into this last weekend's recap with the other games. Duluth getting shut out. Splitting against CC, but getting shut out against CC again. Where is that offense? They scored 4 goals on Saturday. The Steves natural hat trick. We had a lot of those, I guess, this weekend. At least 2 of them in the conference, but. So they got a little bit of offense there on Saturday, but another shutout loss, which is they're kind of racking up those this year. Still don't know if I haven't watched 2 full games of them on a weekend yet. Until St. Cloud plays them, that's when I'll be able to really watch them that in depth. But I was less impressed by Duluth than Dakota coming into this weekend. And I don't think that Duluth really wowed me with a home split of CC. So I would be pretty bearish on them as well. So yeah, who knows? It's there for the taking for Omaha. And I sell low on Omaha in general. So I'm probably still going to do that for now. But yeah, go out to CC and sweep that series, and maybe that'll make me more of a believer in them. But yeah, this is it's a weird year for the league, and weird year for college hockey. There's just there's a lot of parity right now. There's just not a ton of elite teams, and maybe that's a good thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just in general, there's typically, and yeah, you have a Quinnipiac who's only lost 1 game. You've got Denver who looks pretty good. You got Minnesota's off to a really good start, but I don't see Minnesota winning a national title. I don't think Denver is as good as they were last year, even though I wouldn't be shocked if they won it. Quinnipiac, they've done this before, running the table in the regular season, then not winning it in the postseason. So it's wide open right now. And hey, maybe this is the year for St. Cloud. I mean, it's right there for the taking. So go out and get it.
I like the makeup of our team a lot more, and I think it's a lot more consistent when you have incredibly strong defense like we do.
Right. That's right.
You said Jack Randall, goal scoring leader with 14. Jason Poulin from Western Michigan at 13. Cruikshank and Mazer both with 12. So 4 of the top goal scorers in the country there are in the NCHC.
Yep.
So so what do we got this weekend? We got Denver traveling to Minnesota, Duluth, North Dakota traveling to Western Michigan, and then Omaha, like you said, at Colorado College. So that's a good point about Omaha's schedule. I mean, they can rack up some serious points, or just the 2 best teams of the conference, not only playing them once and being done with Denver and splitting. That's huge. So
yeah, and they went to Duluth already. So I mean, they have a 6-game homestand. Now, granted, that's with a week off in between, spanning the New Year's weekend and then going into January. 6 straight home games. Kind of a home-heavy second half for them. And so, but we're kind of looking with them and Western, both sort of on the fringes, and both with a bad loss, a non-conference loss, which if Western wins that game against Anchorage and Omaha wins one of those games against Niagara, we're looking at, we got four teams like in the NCHC in line for a tournament berth, and that seems to be par for the course. Okay, but now the narrative as it's developed this year is that this is kind of a weaker year for the NCHC, which is a narrative that I would agree with. But you can just tell it's just these kind of small, just one loss here, one loss there, and it makes a big difference. So, yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how it shakes out. But that was a weird series with those two teams, Western and Omaha this weekend, and yeah, quite the wild contest, reminiscent of the 1991 NCAA title game with Northern Michigan and Boston University. Still, my dad and my brothers say it's the best game they've ever attended in person. That was the game where BU got off to a 3-0 lead. Northern Michigan outscores them 7-1. After that, to take a 7-4 lead, BU scores the last 3 in regulation, including like the last minute. And then Tony Monty had like a breakaway with like 10 seconds left to win it, but he missed. And then Northern Michigan ends up winning in overtime. In like 3 overtimes, but they were playing 10-minute overtimes, I think. So really only 2 overtimes. But it's at the St. Paul Civic Center, and it was a classic. It's got like a fairly large... They don't have the whole game on YouTube, but it's like maybe a 20-minute package of highlights. It's
Really?
worth it. Dave Shayak.
Check that out.
Dave Shayak, the captain of Northern Michigan, the St. Cloud State assistant coach right now. So that was a really good
Let's
Northern
ask
Michigan
him about
team
it.
too.
Let's bring him on the show and ask him. Hey,
I'd love him. Yeah,
I know you want. I know we're the Huskies hockey podcast. I know you're expecting. We got to talk about this game. And just throw him a big curveball. It's just.
I'm sure he'd really enjoy that. I don't know. We don't really have guests though, but we could break the seal there with Shayak. Definitely, we could talk about old Anchorage stories. I'm sure he's got a bunch of those. So
right,
yeah. Maybe
we'd
get along. We might eventually get along to the St. Cloud State talk. I don't know though. We might just. I don't know. We might be distracted.
I would want to ask him about Hanowski's goal with 0.1 second left.
That's right. Or when they won in overtime. Anchorage beat St. Cloud in overtime. The only time Anchorage ever won a game in St. Cloud. And they celebrated like they won the Stanley Cup. Eric Scheid, I remember the guy who scored the goal. They were, and Shayak had a big grin on his face. Like, hey, we actually did it. Like, it was pretty good. They were like 131-7 or something. It is their all-time record in St. Cloud. Who knows? Maybe we'll get them back on the schedule now that they're back. But
right, exactly. So, talking about those bad losses too. With Omaha, their non-conference. I was looking at every team remaining in their non-conference schedule, and of the 4 teams. That are kind of in the mix when it comes to the pairwise. Denver has games against Lindenwood and Alaska. St. Cloud has the home and home with Minnesota. The Western Michigan, the Broncos, they are at the Great Lakes Invitational. So they've got Michigan Tech and then either Ferris or Minnesota State. But
Michigan Tech.
Yes. Oh, what did I say?
You said Minnesota State. But it was same conference, so you were close.
Who's the other team in the...
Didn't I say that? Or it's Michigan Tech, Michigan State, Ferris Evans State, and Western Michigan. I can't remember what you said now. Who are they playing in the first game? Did you say they're playing Tech in the first game?
Yeah, I said they're playing Tech in the first game. Okay.
So they'll either play Ferris or Michigan State. Michigan, notably not. Michigan is sitting out this year. They didn't even have a chance to back out of this one.
Yeah, exactly. And then Omaha plays St. Lawrence. So St. Lawrence right now is sitting at 41 in the pairwise. Talking about bad losses, I mean, if a split with them or a bad loss to them might really sink their chances as well. Obviously you take care of what you can. Maybe that's different, but just something to kind of keep an eye on. So, we got questions. Or was there anything else around college hockey that piqued your interest? Did you watch any other games or?
Well, you hyped up your Merrimack Yukon midweek game. Did you watch it? I only caught like the very tail end of it. Did you tune into that game at all?
Sadly, I was not able to.
What?
I had parenting duties that night.
Well, you were the one that was like, I'm buckling up. I'm watching this at puck drop and got to check out this Merrimack squad. But
this Yukon squad.
Well, you got another chance, I guess, with the midweek Merrimack. Well, that's what they're called. We're calling them the Merrimack midweek Warriors, because they play this Wednesday at UMass. So you got another shot if you want.
There we go. The boys state of college hockey.
Did you? Did you have a chance to watch that Denver Arizona State the controversial review at all?
The double review? Yes, I did watch that.
Remember when I said we should get rid of reviews? Here's Exhibit A. Because I didn't realize that you had the opportunity to challenge a challenge. Or challenge a play that's already been reviewed. I didn't know that was part of the rule book, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be in the coach's bag to be able to do that. I'm guessing he's like trying to make a point there. If it was me, I would have called the goal. See, from my perspective, I would have called it a goal on the ice, and then it was kind of inconclusive on the review, and I would have just let the goal stand. The fact that they waved it off at the time of the goal, or the no goal was what they called, and then reversed it, I thought was surprising.
Yes.
But so I can see his sort of frustration. Powers, I'm talking about his frustration with this call, but that doesn't mean that you can. Again, I guess he had nothing to lose because 2 minutes left in the game, and that's basically what the game was going to be. But we've already stopped the game for 10 minutes. We don't need to stop it for any much longer than that. If they would have overturned the overturned call,
that's all I was waiting for. That's all I was.
It'd been insane, and not like, oh, did you see that Kaprizov goal? That was so insane. No, this would have been mentally unfit insane. It would have been ridiculous.
I would have thought that the conversation went with Powers re-challenging, being like, well, did you look at it like this? Oh, I didn't think of that way to look at it. I'll go back and check. Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
for those of you who are probably really confused and didn't watch, basically, tie game 2-2, that puck kind of just bounced up in the air, and at the same time, the Arizona State defender was swatting at it with his hand as Levens was playing it with a high stick and just kind of swung at it, and it ended up going to the back of the net. They called it no goal on the icing. It was played with a high stick. It was, I don't know if it was challenged or they just went to a regular review.
I think Denver
I think it was challenged.
Yeah.
From what what's his name? Carl. What he said in the post game, but said that nope, it wasn't touched with the high stick. It was batted in by the Arizona State player. Powers then, I guess, re-challenged because why not? And then, like you said, it delayed the game for another 10 minutes before they kept it. My big thing was that I get why they waved it on the ice, because it did. It was clearly that the high stick was played. First and foremost, I'll say that I think pucks played with a high stick should be fine as long as you don't hit somebody with your stick. Then it's a penalty. I don't like rules that limit skill. So I wish that that's a skill I think that you have. So I think these goals should count anyway. But needless to say, that's not in the rule book now. And also, crossbar, such a stupid arbitrary level. So
I'm
it's
not even sure if it was clear or if it was over the crossbar. Maybe it was. I forget if that was even part of the issue. If I don't think it was conclusive whether or not the stick touched the puck. I thought
that's my big
looked
thing.
like
Yep.
The defenseman's paw is what sort of knocked it in. And you can make the claim that maybe the stick propelled the glove to launch the puck into with the speed that it did. I still don't. Like I said, I would have called it a goal on the ice and then let it stand. But
see, I would have called it no goal, and I would have looked at that and said I don't have distinct evidence because everything just kind of blended together.
I guess that's
great
the
resolution.
Yeah, you don't have a conclusive view from what we saw, and I don't know what else they're looking at. I mean, this is college hockey. It's not like we got 17 different angles here. I'm sure they're looking at whatever the Denver feed had, and so I don't know how you come out with that conclusion based on those replays. But
so to allow that goal, with that not being conclusive about the hitting the puck with the high stick, but then allowing the goal in the St. Cloud game that Constantini scored that was clearly a high stick beforehand that wasn't called. I thought there was just, again, it's the consistency that I kind of have issues with. But obviously it ended up in St. Cloud's favor for the Constantini goal, but I don't know, just it was a weird play that it just further solidifies that I just have to shrug my shoulders every time we go to a review because I have no idea.
Yeah, I think
no idea what these refs are looking at.
Pretty big difference, though. I mean, the play in the St. Cloud game was, again, not the scoring play. That was the defenseman at his own blue line picking the puck up. This was a material effect of how the goal was scored. So I think there was a bit of a difference between those two plays. I don't think they're really apples and apples.
But I think that's just so much open to interpretation, and that's where I get confused. I just wish it was more black and white. You either allow it or you don't. And that's where we missed it, but it was far enough away. Okay, well, what's the timeline of far enough away? I mean, is it 2 zones away? That's fine. But if it's that, and then a quick outlet pass because our guy wasn't able to, make a play on it because you did hit it with a high stick, but I don't know. So it's that arbitrary, kind of shrug of the shoulders again that I have a little bit of an issue with.
Yeah, I get rid of all reviews. Get
rid of all reviews and let you play the puck with a high stick. Again,
make a call with conviction and stick with it. You're going to have some bad calls in it, and you're going to get angry. But it's kind of nice to be angry sometimes. It's good, gets the blood going. But you'll get some calls that go your way too. So it'll even out.
You're a referee. You're going to get yelled at no matter what. So you might as well just be firm in your conviction.
That's right. Did have a couple of other just bullet points, just to tell about the volatility of early season pairwise and just also bad losses too. Harvard, who they only got their first loss of the year, the Thanksgiving weekend. Then beat Cornell this last weekend, but then lost to Colgate the following day. Colgate not very good, like most of the ECAC. They were undefeated and in the top 10 of pairwise. Now they're 15, and technically that'd be outside of the pairwise gate because both the Atlantic Hockey and CCHA do not have a team in the top 15, so they'd both be taking their tournament team. So,
Harvard, maybe we are burying the lead when it comes to.
I was gonna get to that. Probably the biggest. I would say the biggest upset of the weekend is Ferris Heaven State. Going into Mankato, 2 regulation wins for them, a clean 6-point sweep, first sweep that Mankato, 2 losses at home in a weekend since 2012. Going back to the old WCHA days, a Wisconsin series for them. So didn't realize it'd been that long of a streak of not getting swept at home for Mankato.
I mean, that was back when Wisconsin was decent. That's how far back we're going.
Yeah, I don't know if that would have been the 12-13 season or the 11-12 season. Not sure. I think the 13. I think that was when they won the Final Five, the last one.
Yeah.
So if it was that year, they would have made the tournament, but I don't think they did the year before. There was some kind of. I mean, that would have been.
They also won the first year of the Big Ten, right?
That's right. That's right. So yeah. Yeah, so it would have been. Yeah, they at least would have been better than they are
fans.
Now. Yeah, it would have been better than they are now.
PXL.
But still, for Mankato's perspective, I mean, I don't like it because those Mankato wins that St. Cloud got earlier in the year don't look as hot. I was very confident that they were just going to kind of cut through the CCHA like butter this year, and they still might win that league. It's not a great league, like I said. No one in an at-large position in the pairwise at this point in the season, and teams like Michigan Tech are decent, and Bowling Green's okay, and Northern Michigan's got some players, but seems like definitely a disappointing season this year. I'm sure people expected them to take a step back because of what they lost last year, but definitely did not expect getting swept at home to Ferris Evans State. Not a quality result. So I would say that would be the biggest shocker of the weekend for me was those results. But those are the only other sort of bullet points I had on this weekend. Unless you had anything else.
No, but I'm just kind of looking at CCHA standings. Again, a little bit uneven since some have 12, some only have 8 games played. But yeah, Bowling Green right now sits atop of the league. Michigan Tech, though, is right behind with 22 points. They have 4 overtime losses. One to Minnesota State, one to Lake Superior, one to Bemidji State. Okay, so only 3 overtime losses. But otherwise, I think they would be kind of running away with an early CCHA lead. So that might be something kind of to look at, and where they might be hosting, if things continue the way they're going. Houghton hosting the CCHA championship game is definitely a fun atmosphere to watch on TV. So
yeah, that's right. They play all campus sites for their tournament. So yeah, I think I'll be able to watch them in person coming up because they're playing at the Arizona State as a tournament that weekend that the Huskies play the Gophers. Tech plays Arizona State, and then Boston University and Air Force are the other teams. I think I'm going to catch the Friday action, the night that St. Cloud does not play that weekend. So I'll have a first-person scouting report on Michigan Tech soon.
Perfect. Sounds good. We have quite a few questions, but first, I think we got to give a shout out here to the women's team. For a big sweep against St. Thomas, but sitting there 14th in the US Show poll. First time that they've been ranked since 2009. And Adolski really just, with essentially the same team. I mean, not too much has changed, and being able to turn everything around like he has, it's been obviously a huge welcome sight. So hard, for any other team really to kind of gain some traction in this area, because we have to widen the base of women's hockey at the high school level, so we can widen the summit, so then everything kind of gets better all around. And some of the elite players, they do just kind of end up going to the Minnesotas or the Wisconsins and kind of the same type of teams. So getting solid players and coaching them up to, having more solid players, and Adolski, I think, has done just an excellent job. I've only been, I haven't really been able to make it out to a game, but it's kind of on my list to go to a game coming up. We're gonna have kind of a friends outing where we're all gonna go. So, but it's it I am so excited for this team to kind of turn a corner, and I feel like it's finally happening. I thought it was happening back when I was the beat writer in the 07-08 season. I was the beat writer for the St. Cloud State Chronicle, the campus newspaper. So, I've got a fondness there, obviously, for women's hockey in general. It's a fun game to watch overall, and I'm really excited to see this team kind of take some.
Yeah, indeed. I mentioned before the show, kind of in the green room, it's they have the win over the Gophers, but not a ton of head turning wins other than that. Beating teams like St. Thomas and Lindenwood and our RPI, Bemidji. But the difference is, like in years past, St. Cloud wasn't able to beat those teams either. So being able to take care of business is at least one of the steps you need to do before you beat the Wisconsins and the Gophers and the Duluths of the world and Ohio States of the world. And so definitely on the right track, but get the Gophers this weekend. Played them, obviously beat them in that last neutral site game down in Andover, and played them really well down there the last time they played back in, I think, October. Wasn't too long ago. So they've shown that they can play with this team. So opportunity for a head turning result this weekend if they can pull that together. And it's like I said, in the first year here, did not expect even this amount of success already. Now just kind of extrapolate what can happen once he gets his recruiting class fully formed, and year 2, year 3, year 4, and beyond. I finally seeing some hope here with this program, and it is great to see. I will say 14th in the Ustro poll gives a little too much credence to the Ustro poll, as is one of our mottos here. So I'm just going to stick with 13th in pairwise. I'm going to we even move up a little.
And that's
they're actually they're underselling us in the Ustro poll. That's right.
Yep. That's officially with 11 teams making the tournament there. That's
11 teams in the tournament.
The bubble.
And as mentioned again earlier before the show with him, I'm trying to find out if they have 5 conferences right now in the women's side, and 4 of them, at least up until through last year, 4 of them got auto bids. They have this Northeastern League, the NEWHA, that just started a few years ago. It's basically a bunch of D2 teams that are playing up, and they really want to get an auto bid to the tournament. But I was doing some frantic Googling last night, and I could not find if they have been granted that auto bid. If they have not, they would still be the 4 tournament or conference auto bids plus 7 at-large teams. So basically you want to get into that 7 at-large. You want to basically be 7 and up in pairwise to really be confident. And, top 10 at least, because you're going to have some auto bids likely from the top 10. So, yeah, we're 13 right now, and certainly can still make a move up. You have that opportunity playing in the WCHA. You're going to be playing in teams like Minnesota again. You're going to be playing Wisconsin again. You're going to be playing Ohio State again. So you have the opportunity to do that, to make some moves here. And to say that it's not out of the possibility for St. Cloud to make a NCAA tournament, pretty amazing accomplishment so far. But just keep it up. Like I said, I've always wanted a reason to have this be appointment watching, to put this on my slate. It's getting close. Like I said, I tuned into that Gopher, the Hall of Fame game that it was, and watched a couple of the games earlier in the year when I still had that Big Ten Plus access. So yeah, exciting stuff, and I just again hoping to see that this continues, that this isn't the ceiling, let's say.
Yeah. And so right now their record 11-8. But when they started the season, they went through just a nasty gauntlet.
The gauntlet.
They started at Ohio State, home against Wisconsin, and then home against Minnesota. I mean, home against Minnesota after that. So, I mean, that's 6 of just amazing powerhouses of women's college hockey right there. So it's but watching those games, you could tell it was a little bit different. Now, obviously, it was rough against Ohio State. Just getting used to the new coach, a combination of Ohio State being the defending champions. So it's you kind of expected that, but even that, I mean, 5-2, 6-2. I mean, previous years that's 11-1, and that's 7-0. And then against Wisconsin, after a 5-0 loss, come back in overtime, and unfortunately lose 3-2.
That was a game they should have won too. They had a late lead in that game.
They had a late lead in there. And then against Minnesota, 2 very hard fought losses. And then since then, they've been on a 9-2 stretch, including a 4-1 victory against Minnesota in that Hall of Fame game. And then those 2 losses are to Minnesota Duluth, who's a solid team, but one of those losses 2-0. So it's exciting to see everything kind of turn for the women's team, and really excited to see how things are going to kind of shape up. So we'll be having a close eye on it, and my plan is get out to a couple games there in January. Maybe see the Ohio State or State series.
That's what I would say. I'd rather go to Ohio State just to watch defending champs and number 1 in Pairwise right now. That would be the games I would, unless you wanted to have a Bemidji State, probably a better chance that you might see a win there. But if it was me, I'd rather check out the Buckeyes.
Questions. So let's go ahead. We got a fair amount of questions. Everyone's hyped, I think, for the.
It's good to see an engaged listenership. It's always good.
So, friend of the show, Dan Jacobson. Question: have you booked your flights for Tampa yet? No, because I know the history of St. Cloud in NCAA tournaments, so that still makes me nervous. Especially if we have to go up to Fargo and play in the regional there, considering the PTSD from last time.
But decent chance that North Dakota ain't going to be there either.
That's also.
So I'm going to say I haven't booked my flight yet. St. Cloud's going down to Florida this weekend anyway. So it's like we're getting our Florida trip out of the way earlier this year. We'll come back. We're planning or hoping on coming back in the spring.
Yeah,
but
true.
We just take one Florida trip at a time here. So,
Will, when is the right time to get into brewing beer, golf, or any other quote old person activity? And I think if you have to ask that question, yeah, it's time, buddy. Start getting your Mr. Brew kit out. And
I think we can both answer this because you're the golfer.
Yep.
And I brewed the beer. I went through that year-long little. I think I made 3 batches. That was in the first iteration of the podcast, 2016 or whatever it was. So we got them both covered on this one. As you can tell, it didn't really stick with me. I moved and I had a bunch of the brewing equipment. It's too bad. I could have just fobbed off all my brewing equipment on you because I had no use for it anymore. But it doesn't take that much, maybe $100 to kind of get all set up with the gear that you need, and yeah, it can be fun. Tinkering with recipes and adding some stuff here and there, can be kind of fun. I kind of just it depends. I was I'd rather just go and buy the one at the store rather than waiting 2 months or however long it was to have mine ferment. Sure. I'll just buy the $10 6-pack.
He did say any other old person activity. So what would you put in the old person activity, the extras? My thought pickleball. But also pickleball is pretty intense. So
and for you're reminding me too, for our old timers out there, check out Grampade. One of our sponsors here.
One of our sponsors, Grampade, yes.
It's specifically designed, specifically engineered for seniors. So, but at Young at Heart, they have a junior version as well. So, Keep Grandpa in mind. Yeah, there was pickleball, and there is crosswords. I'll say that tends to be on the older person spectrum.
My wife every once in a while gets she hasn't got into it yet, thankfully. But she'll kind of scroll through on TikTok and she'll find rock tumblers and kind of looking at some of the, I don't know, agates, I think, whatever.
There you go.
So I don't know if rock tumbling is in your future as well, but I think maybe that's something that you can kind of consider an old person activity. I had another one off the top of my head. Now I can't remember what it was. Maybe it'll come back to me. Oh, smoking meats. Get yourself a green egg and
you're mentioning all of my former hobbies because I that was like the year before the beer thing. I had a smoker. Yeah, that's another fun one too. But another, again, long, arduous. I'd rather just go to the restaurant. But I would prefer that. I'll be much closer. I'll be smoking some meat before I brew another batch of beer. I'll put it that way. Okay. That's a good. I don't see that being typically an old. What are we considering old here?
I don't know. Will, how old are you?
When I think old, I think like 60, like grandpa demographic.
Okay, Bernard Longer.
This smoking meat seems more like 40 plus. Maybe I was 30 when I did that. So it's all about being young at heart. It's not. Young at heart. Age is just a number.
Oh, there you go. Brian asks, why did the Huskies drop one spot after sweeping the Fighting Hawks? I suppose kind of talking about the SCHO poll. Last week we were 3, we dropped to 4. I kind of went a little bit on Twitter, so if you want to go back at More Clappers and kind of look MOAR Clappers. To kind of look at my thought process. But basically, when I looked at it, the actual points between the St. Cloud and Minnesota were so incredibly close. 891 to 888 last week, and then this week here it's Minnesota's got the edge by 1 point. 891 to 890. So really, the big thing that actually kind of surprised me is the fact that we went from 10 first place votes down to 3. So, I mean, I'm not a very big proponent of putting somebody down in the rankings after a sweep. So to have 7 people kind of change their mind after sweeping North Dakota and say, nope, I don't think they're the best. And it's like, okay, well, what more could we have done to kind of keep your vote? But I don't know.
People must be big on Michigan State and thinking that the Gophers sweeping Michigan State is more impressive than St. Cloud sweeping North Dakota. I don't know. The Gophers couldn't even sweep North Dakota, though, either this year. They had to go to overtime. They went to 2 overtimes.
They went to 2 overtimes, yeah.
Against a bad North Dakota team. So I don't know. Again, it's the SCHO poll. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Next question.
But the first place votes for Denver went from 17 to 29. So batting it in or having your opponent bat in a puck is definitely worth the 12 extra people to change.
Or yeah, maybe that's the thing. It's Arizona State is, Denver getting that many more first place votes after sweeping them, and then Minnesota making their loss to them not look as bad. I don't know. To psychologize the SCHO poll. Probably
not the best.
Anyone that does that belongs in that porta potty that I'm shoving the Omaha announcer in. So
what was it? 1314 check.
113.
Oh, one. I'm sorry. Yes, 131 actually kind of makes sense. 113. I mean, next question, Robert Poser. Goalie rotation. Do we pick one or just keep this going? If you pick one and before the conference playoffs, before the NCHC or the NCAA playoffs, Like, basically, how long do we keep this rotation going?
This has been like our weekly question this year,
Right?
which isn't surprising. I still think
It
that.
keeps working.
Do you see it happening in the NCAA tournament, though? I just
Yes.
don't. I don't.
Yes,
I don't see
think
it.
we should. Okay,
I
who's your better goalie
Bassey.
right now? Who would you want? You would want
Bassey.
Bassey. Why wouldn't you start him in the Saturday or in the second game of the series?
I would. I would also start him in the first.
Start
game.
him in the first. You're upsetting the apple cart now. Nope.
I don't know.
I run it. I run it until somebody falters.
Yeah, I mean, I said I would have done it after the Western Series. I would have given Bassey both the games in CC. But Castor's played really well the last 2 weeks. So,
and like I said, that Friday game or obviously the Friday game, that's the game he played. But when North Dakota was really cycling and really pushed, I mean, he made some really key saves.
Castor, I would say Castor probably played better this weekend, actually.
Yeah.
Like I said, Bassey had a couple. I thought the first goal was not great. And the second goal was a bit of a rebound opportunity. I thought was a little juicy, too. He still played fine, but I would have given Castor the edge this weekend. So I would have given Bassey the edge in CC. It's they've I thought Castor wasn't great against Western, but other than that, I think he's been real solid the rest of all the other series. And I'm not sure if Bassey's had this might have been his worst weekend. I'm struggling to think of another of a worse weekend than this weekend. That's to say that there hasn't been really any bad weekend. So, yeah, I at this point throwing my hands in the air and say just keep running it. But I just from my betting perspective, if I was to bet on it, I would say by the end of the year someone's going to take the reins. But because I just don't see playing playoff games just with switching goalies to this extent, like a planned platoon. I don't remember that ever happening. I'm sure it has sometime in the history of hockey, but I just can't remember any. But maybe that's the reason to do it. It's never been done.
Yeah,
this maybe new school.
Maybe we're revolutionizing the game right here.
It's possible. It's possible.
We're switching from
a
guy to a 1.51 goals against or a 2.01 goals against.
And credit to both the goalies for buying into this system. I think that's not a natural thing for goalies to want to do. This is Bassey coming in from CC where he may have heard, seen the writing on the wall. He didn't want to maybe be in a tandem situation with Mbarico coming in with some hype in CC. But being able to accept this as far as, hey, I'm just going to get the one game per weekend, that's fine with me. I'm going to focus on that one game. Jackson's going to do his thing on Friday. I'm going to do my thing on Saturday. Vice versa. They have to both sort of be fine with that, and that's not like it's easier said than done. I think a lot of goalies would say, screw that. I want to be the starter both nights or nothing. So I think credit to them for keeping the focus on this sort of unusual situation, but they're making the most of it. And yeah, as you're saying, like until it really breaks here, why screw with it? So yeah.
My buddy Eric Zamora asked what he should be when he grows up. I think he should be the director of operations for the St. Cloud Norsemen. So there we go. I think you reached your peak there, Zamora.
I agree. He's where he needs to be.
I say that with all the love. There's another guy actually we could probably have on the show. So
yeah, all of a sudden we're gonna get guests, and
we're gonna.
I'm all for it. Let's do it.
I don't know if I'm all for it. That seems like a lot of work.
It does.
I kind of like just having you coming on and just. And Jeffrey Wood had kind of a good question. He linked Schlossman's article in regard to college hockey being altered by the transfer portal and kind of his theory on why college hockey has been chaotic this season. Basically, the transfer portal in combination with the extra year of COVID eligibility for a lot of people. Basically, there's less holes to fill for teams, so that has been raising the tide for a lot of teams. So it's not necessarily that, there's a lot more teams that are better versus only a couple teams that are standout and kind of taking the reins for everything throughout the whole season. Kind of wanted my take or our take on that. So I don't know. Did you get a chance to read that article, or kind of what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I did read it. I thought it was a good article. I pretty much agree with the premise that it's not so much that you build a team from the transfer portal, but that you're able to patch some holes in a way that a rebuild, you can shorten the gap of a rebuild. He made he used the example of that 01-02 North Dakota team, which would have been the last time that St. Cloud swept them at home. And I believe, as we mentioned last week, that was the last time they had a losing record, North Dakota, in a season. And that was a year after they made the national title game, but they lost. That was the that Panzer line, right? Line of fire.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have lost all those guys, and it was a freshman-heavy team. Would that have been Parisi? Or maybe he came in the next year. But anyway, they had just a ton of freshmen, and that freshman group ended up going to a national title game in their senior year. So, I mean, it was definitely a talented group, but just they had such a freshman-heavy roster that, they were too young and couldn't adjust to the league right away. Well, those sort of situations, you can alleviate that to an extent now, where instead of relying so heavily on a younger group or an unproven group, you can bring in a veteran, someone who's been around for a couple of years. You can bring him in as a transfer. It's become, like we've seen, like it's a perfect example here of how the transfer portal is no sure solution, though. You have the perfect balance between St. Cloud this year and North Dakota this year. Both used the transfer portal in a couple of key spots. You can even go back to last year, which I think is much of the same story for North Dakota. Getting Zach Driscoll last year, goaltender, with some hype coming in from Bemidji State. And then this year bringing in DeRitter, had some decent years playing for a bad Michigan State team. Both of those goalies, I think Driscoll obviously did turn it around at the end of the year, and they ended up making the tournament, but both I thought underwhelmed. And they brought in that Calder last year from Lake State. Now he moved on to Penn State and playing pretty well for them. I thought that was a decent pickup for them, but then this Farmer, I think, was their only other main transfer guy, a defenseman from UMass. And I think he was the guy that gave up that turnover that led to the fourth goal on Friday? One of the goals on Friday. Remember, no, it was the fifth. It was the Mietnik goal. And this North Dakota backhand not stepping up very well. So kind of swung and missed this year twice with DeRitter and Farmer, I think. At least the early returns, again. There is half a season left, so they could turn things around. Whereas on the other side, you got St. Cloud hitting home runs on all three of their guys. Bassey, Cruikshank, and Anhorn, who if you're going to fill out like an MVP ballot for this team in the first half, all three of those guys would be in the top 5 or 6. And Cruikshank.
I mean, they might be in the top 3.
Right. Cruikshank. Well, I'm saying it'd be tough for Bassey because he doesn't play every game, as we're just saying. But Cruikshank might get Player of the Year, Conference Player of the Year votes at this point. Anhorn would probably get Defenseman of the Year votes. I don't think anyone expected. I think we were optimistic that they could play. That they would be effective. I don't think anyone had any of those players playing to the extent that they have now. And you see what they were able to replace. You're replacing Renak, 5-year starter in net. You're replacing Perbix, and you're replacing Fitzgerald. Essentially your top scorer, your top defenseman, and your 5-year starting goaltender. And you're able to plug those guys up with these 3 guys. That's not going to be the case every year. You're not going to hit these kind of home runs every single year. But that is, I think, the main reason that St. Cloud is where they are. is that
Yep.
they played the transfer portal to a T this year. And as I've said in the past, like I've had misgivings about the portal.
One thing I also want to kind of point out is that transfer portal. I mean, that's still you not only have to you have to pick the right players, but they also have to agree. They also have to buy in, and
that's right.
That's a recruiting process for you. So you have to really sell on that. So I mean, not only did we hit out the park with those three, but also credit to Brett Larson and Shayak and all, Anga, who else is, it's going to be the whole, kit and caboodle who's going to be the, really selling these players on this is why you should come here. This is, we have the bet, an opportunity for you. We think you're the right fit that we need, and for them to also back it up and say that, oh, I was the missing piece on this team, because all three of them definitely were.
Yeah, and I was just saying, I've had some misgivings with the idea of the portal. At first, I didn't really like the idea of a guy like Cruikshank playing 3 different teams, but I've come to peace with it. It's like, why? I mean, if you're a college student, just not an athlete, there's nothing stopping you from transferring to a different school with a better program that you're into. And I like the idea of giving these adults, they're young adults, we always call them kids, but they are young adults. They should have the opportunity to play and study and train as being a professional, whatever field they are, at whatever school fits them the best. So it's going to be a thing. It's not going away. So I think you have to accept it one way or the other. This is going to be how things are going to go from now on. And just also accept the fact that the results aren't going to be consistent from a team's perspective year in and year out. Like this year, it was great for St. Cloud. Like in years past, I mean, prior to this year, what we had Seamus Donahue, which I think was a pretty volatile player, lots of lows, some highs and lots of lows. Yeah. You got Spellacy, who's, not a big point producer and, scratched a lot of the time, at least last year. So I wouldn't call those home runs. Cockrell in the 2020-21 season brought him in, and I thought he was a decent role player, but not an impact player to the extent that Cruikshank or any of these 3 guys that we mentioned have been this year. So again, prior to this year, the transfer portal was maybe neutral at best of an effect for St. Cloud, but this year,
that's where
really knocked
Denver,
it out of the park.
Right. It was a huge get for Denver. When they had
Cameron Wright.
Cameron. They had so many different prolific people on that team, and maybe will be this year's Denver, which I will definitely take.
And it could be. I mean, imagine if North Dakota, if this Ty Farmer, let's imagine if he was putting up Anhorn type production, and if DeRitter was performing like Castor, let's say. North Dakota would be in the top half of the conference, and we wouldn't be saying how crappy they are. It's just I think it's become sort of an X factor that can swing either way, and I think that's interesting. I think that kind of makes things fun. It's an interesting added wrinkle to college hockey that I think a lot of people, when it's first started, I think maybe the conventional wisdom was that this is just going to benefit the good old boys, the traditional powers at the expense of the smaller schools. That I think we have enough evidence to say that that's false. I think I think it's a reciprocal. I think there's as much benefit to a smaller school who's able to pick up guys who are being shelved. Look at Cruikshank, buried on the Gophers depth chart. But now he's got, top line or top 6 minutes at least, and he's performing, like I said, like an MVP. And so smaller schools, or the non-traditional powers, let's say, have the opportunity to give guys playing time that the bigger schools are burying. And conversely, the bigger schools always have sort of a recruiting advantage in any sense of recruiting. And as you're saying, this is basically recruiting. It's just, you're not recruiting players coming into college. You're recruiting them to go from one college to the other. And So the bigger schools definitely have advantages, and what they're selling to those players is always going to be attractive to certain players too. So I do think that it swings both ways. There's certainly not like this is expanding the gap between rich and poor here in college hockey. I think it's actually shrinking that gap, if anything, if you play it right. And like I said, it's not going to work out so aces as it did this year for St. Cloud, but God, I mean, don't we have another year of Anhorn? I know this is the only year that we got Crookshank for, but I know we have another year of Bassey. I think Anhorn's still eligible for another year too. So this isn't just a 1 year thing too for all these players. Obviously Crookshank it is, but you still have some multiple years with some of these guys, and yeah, try to make the most of it. And I'm definitely more comfortable with this the transfer portal, how it is. I very much more comfortable now to see how well you can play it as St. Cloud did this past offseason.
Last question from Goasi's Woo. He wants us to kind of answer, how correct is this take? UND is like Denver, parentheses, one good line, but without the defense and the goaltending capabilities.
Yeah, I think Denver's got more than just one line, but I would agree with the rest of it, I think. Just no defense. I mean, Denver's like fourth or fifth defense. Because that Barons, Benning, who's the other, Booyam, all the Bees, all those guys are way better than anyone North Dakota has. I was wondering if Dakota had some like injury issues. I think they had one guy, Frisch, I think was injured from their point.
Frisch was the main one, yeah.
But not like he's a stud. You can tell that they really miss Sanderson. Who wouldn't, I guess. I mean, he's already become like a star or a stud in the NHL himself. I mean, anyone would miss a player like that.
And I also think Denver with Kyle Mayhew was the one that really struck out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I would say
that really stuck out to me when we played Denver.
Yeah, so like Denver's like sixth defenseman would be Dakota's top defenseman essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I know you're low on Krona, but he's a little better than
he is.
Helston or DeRitter at this point, I'd say. So yeah, I don't think
there's a lot who isn't better than Helston and DeRitter.
Go by the stats. I don't think anyone would disagree with you. They're like bottom 5 in goals against in the country. Like they're at like Brown, Yale type levels. Not good. With that end of the action.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Drew DeRitter is the 12th worst goaltender in goals against. And, save percentage. Helston and DeRitter are 3rd and 4th worst in college hockey for save percentage. The only worse is John Day from Stonehill, who has one game and gave up 7 goals. And Joey Lamoureux at Alaska Anchorage, who has played 4 games and has an 820 or 826 save percentage. But yeah, then Jacob Helston at 859 and Drew DeRitter at 87.
And both not both with token work there. They both have 9-10 games played between them. So not just a small sample size with those goalies. I'm glad that I'm glad that we got our first Stonehill player name dropped on this show.
Yeah.
I'm psyched about that.
Now, 6th worst in save percentage, Cameron Rowe, Western Michigan.
Yeah, well, he had a bad weekend in Omaha this weekend.
7th worst, Zach Stasigal from Minnesota Duluth. Only 7 games played. But.
Looks like that Tyson, who they brought in from Maine, has become basically their starter. And he's played pretty well, actually. He has not been the problem of late. But I wouldn't have expected that. development either. But
So in case you're wondering, Dominic Bassi is number 1 in the country for save percentage at 940.
it's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm not as high on Corona as a lot of people are. I think he's an average goaltender. But yeah, definitely better than anybody that North Dakota has. I do agree that Denver has more than one good line. I don't think they have two, though. I think maybe they've got like one line and maybe 2 solid players. I don't think they're that deep. I think you could easily shut them down. So that's why I don't really pick them to go incredibly far in the tournament, because I think there will be a team that does shut them down. So, but yeah, it's I just don't see a lot of hope for this season with that North Dakota team.
Yeah, just to call Denver a one-line team, though. Like, North Dakota is a one-line team. Like, who else other than that top line? I mean, again, I mentioned Ness and Constantini scoring, and I think those were just bad defensive plays from St. Cloud. But their only sort of one dynamic line was that Blake, James, and Gaber line, and really nothing else to sneeze at other than that. So, yeah, we can debate here and there about Denver and all that, but let's stick to the task of bashing North Dakota, as we have for over 2 hours now.
Oh, geez.
This
crossed
was
the
good.
2 hour mark?
We're getting into record territory here, but
Ooh.
knowing our listeners, they've enjoyed every second of it. So
I know I've enjoyed talking about it. So, I mean, I guess with that, then that about does her. So
about does her.
I suppose 2+ hours. We'll
hopefully
tie a bow on it.
we took care of both commutes for you. Okay, split this into two
and
two rush hours.
So
that's right.
Yep, exactly. So you can reach me at More Clappers, MOAR Clappers on Twitter, and Andrew, you can email us.
You can send us an email. It's Huskies Hockey Podcast, huskieshockeypodcast@gmail.com. Send me an email.
Perfect. Sounds good. And also leave us a review. We'll give you a shout out in the podcast. Also, if you leave a review, 5 stars only, less than 5 stars, I will cry. And I don't want that to happen. So, and until next time.
Don't make Weldie cry.
Don't make Weldie cry. That's hashtag. Don't make Weldie cry. Until next time, go Huskies. Woo!